The alarm had been screaming for 3 days now. Commander no longer heard it. The sound had become part of her existence, like her own heartbeat or the hum of the ship's dying engines. She stood at the observation deck of the flagship, her 4 arms hanging loose at her sides, her large silver eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The armada filled the sky like a disease spreading across healthy skin. Their ships were ugly things, black and sharp, covered in weapons that glowed red like angry eyes. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, had stopped counting after the first day. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in silence. There was nothing left to say. They had sent messages to every allied species in the galaxy. They had apologized and said they were too far away. They had not responded at all. The council had offered their prayers and their regret, but no ships. No one was coming. Turned away from the window and walked to the communication station. Young officer sat there, her slender fingers still moving across the controls. The girl had not slept in 2 days. None of them had. Any response? Asked. She already knew the answer. Shook her head. Her voice was small and tired. Nothing, Commander. The automated signals continue to broadcast, but there is no reply from any sector. Placed one of her hands on shoulder. The gesture felt hollow. What comfort could she offer? Their world was surrounded. Their fleet was broken. The civilian population below waited in shelters, millions of who had never known war, who had built their society on peace and trade, and the simple belief that the galaxy was a good place. That would prove them wrong. Keep broadcasting, said, until the end. She walked across the bridge to where Elder sat in his advisory chair. The old male was ancient by standards, his blue skin faded to pale gray, his eyes clouded with age. But his mind remained sharp. He had lived through the first raids 60 years ago, when humanity was just a rumor and the galaxy still believed in safety. You should rest, Elder said. Made a sound that might have been laughter. Rest. At my age, death is rest enough. I will not spend my final hours sleeping. He looked up at her with those clouded eyes. You did everything right, Commander. You must know this. I failed to protect our people. You faced an enemy that no one could defeat. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They consume and destroy because that is their nature, like a fire that burns because it must burn. Reached out and touched her arm with his thin, wrinkled fingers. But I have been thinking about old stories, old records. Frowned. This is not the time for stories, Elder. Perhaps it is exactly the time. His voice dropped to a whisper. Have you ever heard of Earth? The word meant nothing too. She shook her head. It is a small planet in a distant arm of the galaxy, unremarkable in size, orbiting an unremarkable star. But the creatures that evolved there paused, and for a moment something like fear crossed his ancient face. They call themselves humans. The Galactic Council calls them. Had turned in her chair, listening now. Other crew members had stopped their work. The word was not unknown to them. It was a classification given to species from extreme planets, worlds with crushing gravity, poisonous atmospheres, violent weather, and dangerous wildlife. Most species never developed intelligence. The conditions were too harsh. They simply fought and died and were forgotten by the universe. The humans are different, continued. Their world tried to kill them every day of their existence. Their planet has extreme temperatures from burning heat to freezing cold. The gravity is heavy. The air carries diseases. The water contains predators. Even the plants can be deadly. He shook his head slowly. And yet they survived, not just survived. They conquered their world. They tamed their monsters. They built cities and ships and weapons. Why have I never heard of them? Asked. Because the Galactic Council voted to isolate them. 60 years ago, after first contact, the Council decided that humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. They were given their own sector and told to stay there. Most species avoid that region of space entirely. Spoke up, her young voice uncertain. Are they really so terrible? Was quiet for a long moment. I have seen the old records, the classified files. Humans are difficult to describe. They evolved as persistence predators on their world. This means they would choose prey and simply follow it. Not fast, but endless, never stopping, never resting. They would chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, and then they would kill it. The bridge crew shifted uncomfortably. They are also pack creatures, said, loyal to their group beyond all reason. A human will die for those they consider family, and their definition of family is flexible. I have read reports of humans adopting creatures from other planets, treating them as their own children. Even enemies once shown kindness can become part of their pack. Felt a strange sensation in her chest. It might have been hope, but it had been so long since she felt it that she could not be sure. Where are you going with this, Elder? Smiled. It was a sad smile, tired and old. I am saying that perhaps not all of our signals went unanswered. Perhaps something hurt us, something that the rest of the galaxy fears. The humans are isolated, said. They would not receive our transmission. Radio waves do not respect political boundaries, replied. And humans are curious creatures. They have been exploring beyond their borders for decades, secretly, of course, but they are out there, watching, listening. Turned back to the window, the armada had not moved. They were waiting, she knew, the like to let their victims suffer. They enjoyed fear. In another day, perhaps two, they would begin their attack. The orbital bombardment would come first, turning cities into ash. Then the landing parties to collect survivors for whatever dark purposes they had planned. Even if humans heard our signal, said, why would they help us? We are strangers to them. The galaxy abandoned them to their isolation. Why would they risk themselves for species that showed them no kindness? Leaned back in his chair. That is the mystery of humans. By all logic, they should be cruel. Their evolution created them as killers. Their history is filled with violence. They have fought wars among themselves that killed millions of their own kind. And yet, he paused, and yet they also show incredible compassion. They will walk into fire to save a stranger. They will starve themselves to feed the hungry. They protect the weak, even when it serves no purpose. Humans make no sense, Commander. They are chaos in living form. The next hours passed slowly. They remained in position, their ships dark and silent. On the planet below, they waited for death. Children were held close. Prayers were whispered. Some tried to send final messages to distant relatives, though the jammers blocked most transmissions. Stayed on the bridge. She did not eat. She barely moved. Her eyes remained fixed on the enemy fleet, counting the minutes until the end. It was who noticed it first. The young officer had been staring at her console, half asleep, when the readings changed. She blinked twice, certain that exhaustion was playing tricks on her mind. But the readings remained. Something was wrong with space itself. Commander, said, her voice strange, I am detecting an anomaly. Walked over. What kind of anomaly? I do not know. It is at the edge of the system. Space is bending in ways I have never seen, like something is tearing through from somewhere else. The bridge crew gathered around the sensors. Even Elder rose from his chair, his old bones creaking as he moved closer. The readings made no sense. The energy signatures were off the scale. Whatever was happening, it was not natural. Then the tier opened. It was not like any wormhole that had ever recorded. Those were smooth and controlled, carefully maintained by ancient technology. This was violent. The fabric of space ripped apart like paper, and through the wound, light poured in. Bright, burning light. And then the ships came. They were massive, far larger than any vessel in the fleet. Their hulls were gray and functional, covered in weapons that made the armaments look like toys. They moved with a speed that should have been impossible for their size. By the ancestors, whispered. Could not speak. She could only watch as more ships emerged, dozens of them, carriers and battleships and destroyers, forming a wall of metal between thee and the. On the flagship sensors, a signal appeared, A transmission on all frequencies in a language that the universal translator struggled to process. But after a moment the words came through. They were simple, direct, spoken in a voice that was calm and steady. "This is Captain Ho of the human ship Horizon. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Elder began to laugh. It was not the laughter of joy, but of disbelief, of hope that had come too late to expect. "They came," he said. "They actually came." The fleet had stopped. For the first time in days, the enemy was not advancing. They were watching the human ships with something that might have been confusion, or perhaps fear. They had never encountered humans before. They had only heard stories. Now those stories had arrived in force. Finally found her voice, open a channel to the human ship. His fingers trembled as she worked the controls. "Channel open, Commander." Stepped forward. She had led her people through 3 days of despair. She had prepared them for death. But now, looking at the human fleet filling her screen, she did not know what to say. She settled for the truth. "Captain Ho," she said, "thank you for coming, but you should know the enemy is strong. There are many of them. We cannot ask you to die for us." The human captain's response came quickly. His voice was warm, almost friendly. "Commander, we did not come here to die. We came here to win. Stand by. We will take care of your little problem." And just like that, hope returned to the human fleet hung in space like a promise of violence. Commander could not stop staring at them. The ships were so different from anything she had seen before. Vessels were smooth and elegant, built for efficiency and beauty. Ships were jagged and cruel, designed to inspire fear. But human ships were something else entirely. They were practical, solid. Every line and angle served a purpose. There was no wasted space, no decoration, just raw, functional power. Elder stood beside her at the observation window. His old eyes reflected the distant lights of the human fleet. "I have studied their history," he said quietly. "Humans have been fighting wars for their entire existence, not just against other species, but against each other. They have perfected the art of destruction." "Then why would they help us?" asked. The question had been burning in her mind since the human ships appeared. "We are not their people. We are not even from their sector of space." "That is the great mystery of humanity." His voice held a note of wonder. "They should be monsters. Their evolution, their history, their very nature should have made them the most cruel species in the galaxy. And yet, somewhere along the way, they developed something that most never achieve." "What is that?" "Empathy, compassion, the ability to look at a stranger and see themselves," shook his head slowly. "It makes no sense, but humans have never made sense." On the bridge behind them was monitoring communications. The young officer had not left her station since the humans arrived. She was listening to the signals passing between the human ships, trying to understand these strange creatures who had come to save them. "Commander," called out, "the human captain is requesting a direct communication. He wishes to speak with you about strategy." Turned from the window. Her body felt lighter than it had in days. The weight of despair had lifted, replaced by something new. She did not know if it was hope or simply confusion, but it was better than waiting for death. "Put him through," she said. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Captain Ho was younger than had expected. His skin was a warm brown color, his eyes dark and alert. Black hair was cut short in a military style. He wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations except a small flag on his shoulder. The flag showed a blue circle on a white background, surrounded by olive branches. "Commander," the human said. His voice was calm and steady, just as it had been during his first transmission. "Thank you for speaking with me. I know you must have questions." "Many questions," admitted, "but one more than others. Why are you here? Your people were isolated by the Galactic Council. We are not your allies. We have never spoken before today. Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Ho smiled. It was a strange expression, pulling back his lips to show his teeth. had read that this was a sign of friendship among humans, though it looked almost aggressive. That is a fair question. The simple answer is that we heard your distress signal. Someone was in trouble. We had the ability to help, so we came. That cannot be the only reason. No, it is not. Ho's smile faded. His face became serious. We have been watching them for a long time. They are expanding, conquering, destroying. Right now, they are your problem. But if no one stops them, eventually they will become everyone's problem, including ours. He paused. And there is another reason, a personal one. Tell me. The human captain was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. 60 years ago, the Galactic Council decided that humans were too dangerous. They locked us in our sector and told us to stay away. Most species treat us like monsters, like something to be feared and avoided. He looked directly through the screen. But monsters do not answer distress calls. Monsters do not fly across the galaxy to help strangers. We are here to prove that the Council was wrong about us. Felt something shift in her understanding. She had feared these humans when they first appeared. Their ships were weapons of war. Their history was violence. But looking at Ho now, she saw something else. She saw someone who wanted to be seen for who he truly was, not for the stories others told about him. I believe you, she said. Ho nodded. Good. Now let us talk about my tactical officers have been analyzing their fleet. We count approximately 800 ships of various sizes. Their flagship is the large one in the center, the one that looks like a broken mountain. Nodded, she knew that ship well. It belonged to War Chief, the commander of this invasion force, was famous throughout the galaxy for his cruelty. He did not just conquer worlds. He destroyed them completely, leaving nothing behind but ash and memory. They have not attacked yet, said. They are waiting for something. They are waiting for you to surrender, Ho replied. They prefer to take prisoners rather than kill everyone. Prisoners can be used as slaves, as food, as entertainment. If you surrender, they will take a portion of your population and leave the rest to rebuild. Then they will return in a generation to harvest again. The word harvest made feel sick. We will never surrender. I know, that is why they will eventually attack. They have given you time to despair, to lose hope. Now that we are here, they will need to change their plans. Ho leaned forward. War Chief will try to destroy us first. He cannot allow humans to survive this battle. If word spreads that fought thee and won, other species might find the courage to resist. The Empire depends on fear. We are a threat to that fear. What do you suggest? We attack first. Ho's eyes hardened. They expect us to wait to form defensive lines to protect your planet while they surround us. But humans do not fight like that. We are predators, Commander. When we face an enemy, we do not wait. We strike. Behind Ho could see other humans moving on the bridge of his ship. They were preparing for battle, checking systems and weapons with calm efficiency. None of them seemed afraid. They had done this before. How many ships do you have? Asked. 42 combat vessels, plus 16 support ships for medical, repair, and resupply. 42 against 800, could not hide her disbelief. Those odds are impossible. Ho smiled again. This time the expression looked almost dangerous. Commander, I should tell you something about humans. We do not calculate odds the way other species do. We do not ask if we can win. We ask what we are willing to sacrifice to achieve victory. He paused. And we are willing to sacrifice a great deal. The next hours were filled with preparation. Captain Ho shared his battle plans with officers. The strategies were aggressive and unpredictable, designed to confuse and overwhelm rather than simply destroy. Humans, it seemed, understood war not just as a contest of strength, but as a contest of will. Commander Ho's second-in-command led a briefing for the bridge crew. She was a tall woman with sharp features and quick eyes. Her voice was soft, but her words were steel. They rely on numbers and fear, explained. They surround their enemies, cut off escape, and wait for surrender. They have never faced an opponent who attacked them instead. This will be their weakness. "What about their weapons?" asked one of the officers. "Our shields cannot withstand their plasma cannons." "Your shields are not designed for war," said. It was not an insult, just a fact. "Human shields are different. We have been fighting for so long that our defensive technology evolved alongside our weapons. But you are right. Some of our ships will take damage. Some may be destroyed." She paused. "That is the nature of war. People die. The question is whether their deaths mean something." Had been listening quietly, now she spoke up. "Are you not afraid?" Looked at the young officer for a long moment. "Fear is natural. Every human feels fear before battle, but we have learned to use that fear. It makes us faster, sharper, more aware. Fear is not our enemy. Giving up is our enemy." The fleet finally moved as the human ships began their advance. War Chief had received reports about these humans from the toxic planet called Earth. His advisors told him stories of human violence, human endurance, human refusal to accept defeat. Did not believe most of these stories. No species could be as dangerous as the legends claimed. But watching the human ships cut through space toward his armada felt something unfamiliar in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the sensation. It was doubt. The human fleet did not form traditional battle lines. Instead, they split into smaller groups, each moving in different directions. Their speed was remarkable. Ships were fast, but these human vessels moved like predators chasing prey. They dodged and weaved, making targeting difficult. "All ships engage the intruders," ordered. "Destroy them before they reach our line." Plasma cannons fired. Space lit up with deadly energy. The first shots missed entirely. The humans were too fast, too unpredictable. They did not fly in straight lines. They twisted and turned, using each other as cover, moving as a single coordinated pack. On the flagship, watched in amazement. She had never seen anything like this. The human pilots flew their massive ships as if they were small fighters, performing moves that should have been impossible for vessels of that size. "How are they doing that?" she asked. Elder stood beside her, his old eyes wide. "Humans evolved on a world with heavy gravity. Their bodies are stronger, their reactions faster, and their minds," he shook his head. "Human brains process information differently. They can make decisions in fractions of a second. Where we see chaos, they see patterns." The first human ship exploded. A plasma burst caught a destroyer at close range, tearing through its shields and hull. Debris scattered across space. On the communication channels, there was a moment of silence from the human fleet. Then Captain Ho's voice came through, steady and cold. "All ships continue the attack, honor their sacrifice, make it mean something." The battle intensified. More ships fell from both sides. But for every human vessel destroyed, 5 ships burned. The humans fought with a fury that they had never encountered. They did not retreat, did not hesitate. When one human ship was damaged, others would cover it, protecting their wounded companion while it pulled back for repairs. War Chief watched his numbers shrinking. Impossible. This was impossible. How could 42 ships stand against 800? He was about to learn the answer. The human flagship, the Horizon, broke through the line. It was heading directly for his command ship. The war chief ordered all nearby vessels to intercept, but the humans had anticipated this. Other human ships created diversions, drawing the defenders away. "This is Captain Ho," came the transmission on all frequencies. "War Chief, I am coming for you. Your fleet has 2 choices, retreat now or watch you die. There will be no other options." Snarled, dared to threaten him. He would destroy this human and mount his skull in his trophy hall. "All weapons, target the human flagship. Burn it from the sky." But as the flagship turned its guns toward the Horizon, finally understood his mistake. The human ship was not alone. While he had focused on Ho, 3 other human destroyers had circled behind him. Their weapons were charged and aimed. For the first time in his long career of conquest, War Chief felt true fear. The people looked up at the sky. They could see the flashes of battle, the distant explosions like new stars being born and dying. They did not know what was happening, but for the first time in days, they dared to hope. They had come, and they were fighting. The horizon shook as enemy fire struck its shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, painting everything in shades of red and orange. Captain Ho stood firm at his command post, his hands gripping the railing, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The flagship filled the view, a massive structure of black metal and glowing weapons. "Shield status?" Ho asked. 62% and falling, reported Lieutenant from the tactical station. He was a young man with quick hands and steady nerves, born and raised on a space station orbiting Mars. "They are concentrating fire on our forward sections. Keep us moving. Do not give them a stable target." The horizon twisted in space, engines burning hard. The ship was large, but human engineers had built it for speed and flexibility. It could dance where other vessels of its size could only crawl. Beside Ho, Commander coordinated with the other ships in the fleet. Her voice was calm but urgent, issuing orders with precise efficiency. "Wing 3, break left and draw fire from the flagship's starboard cannons. Wing 7, I need you to punch through that screen of destroyers. Create an opening for our bombers." The communication channels filled with responses. Human voices, steady despite the chaos of battle. No panic, no fear, just focus and determination. On the flagship, Commander watched the battle unfold on her sensors. The human tactics were unlike anything in military history. They did not form defensive lines or hold positions. They attacked constantly, from every direction, never giving them a moment to regroup. "They fight like wild animals," one of her officers said. There was no criticism in the observation, only amazement. "No," Elder corrected. "They fight like hunters. Every move has a purpose. Watch how they work together, how each ship knows exactly where the others will be. This is not chaos. This is coordination at its highest form." They were struggling to adapt. Their military doctrine was built on overwhelming force and terror. They surrounded their enemies, crushed resistance, and collected the survivors. But the humans refused to be surrounded. Every time they tried to encircle a human ship, it would break free, often destroying several enemy vessels in the process. War Chief roared orders from his command throne. His flagship was the largest vessel in the fleet, a dreadnought-class warship that had conquered dozens of worlds. Its weapons could level cities. Its shields could withstand bombardments that would vaporize lesser ships. He had never known defeat. Today, that record was in danger. "Where are my reinforcements?" demanded. "I ordered the second wave to engage." "War Chief," his tactical officer replied, voice trembling. "The second wave is engaged. The human destroyers cut through our formation. They are attacking our rear elements." Impossible. The human fleet was tiny compared to his armada. How could they be everywhere at once? The answer came in the form of human squadron tactics. While the main force pressed the attack on the center, smaller groups of human ships had circled around the edges of the battle. They struck supply ships, communications relays, and command vessels. They were not trying to destroy the entire fleet. They were trying to blind it, confuse it, break its ability to coordinate. And it was working. Captain Ho watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The formation was breaking apart. Individual captains were making decisions without orders from, some advancing recklessly while others pulled back. The unity that made the dangerous was crumbling. "Now," Ho said, "all ships converge on the flagship, everything we have." The human fleet responded. From every corner of the battlefield, ships turned toward the command vessel. They moved in perfect synchronization, a pack of predators closing on their prey. Lieutenant led the bomber squadron. His ship, the Swift Thunder, was smaller than the main warships, built for speed and precision strikes. He guided his team through a wall of defensive fire, weaving between plasma bursts and missile salvos. "Stay tight," told his pilots. "We have one shot at this, make it count." The flagship's shields were powerful, but they had limits. The human strategy was simple: hit the shields in the same location, again and again, until they failed. It was a tactic born from centuries of human siege warfare, adapted for space combat. The first bomber wave launched their payloads. Torpedoes streaked through space, slamming into the flagship's forward shields. Explosions bloomed across the energy barrier. The shields held, but they weakened. The second wave followed. More torpedoes, more impacts. The shield readings on the flagship flickered. War Chief understood what was happening. He also understood that there was nothing he could do to stop it. His escorts were scattered, his formation in disarray. The humans had outmaneuvered him completely. "Retreat," he ordered, the word bitter on his tongue. "All ships fall back to rally point 7. We will regroup and return with greater force." But the humans were not finished. The horizon surged forward, engines at maximum burn. It was heading directly for the flagship, shields blazing as it pushed through enemy fire. Ho stood at the center of his bridge, watching the distance close. "Prepare main cannon," he ordered. Commander looked at him with concern. "Sir, if we fire at this range, the energy feedback could damage our own systems." "I know, do it anyway." The Horizon's main weapon was called the Solar Lance. It was a concentrated energy beam designed to punch through heavy armor, the kind of weapon that could crack a moon if given enough time. Using it at close range was dangerous, even for the ship that fired it. But Ho was not thinking about safety. He was thinking about ending this battle. The flagship tried to turn to flee, but it was too slow. The Horizon was directly in front of it now, so close that the two ships could almost touch. "Fire," Ho commanded. The Solar Lance activated. A beam of pure white light lanced across space, striking the weakened shields of the flagship. The energy barrier held for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing. The beam continued, boring through the thick armor like a hot knife through ice. Secondary explosions rippled across the vessel. Its engines sputtered and died. Emergency venting blew atmosphere into space. The flagship was not destroyed, but it was crippled. Its weapons went silent. Its lights flickered and dimmed. Across the battle area, the surviving ships witnessed the fall of their leader. War Chief's vessel, the terror of 100 worlds, floated dead in space. The human ship had done what no one else in the galaxy had ever accomplished. The fleet broke. It was not an organized retreat. It was a rout. Ships scattered in every direction, abandoning their formation, their mission, their pride. The feared warriors of the Empire fled from 42 human vessels. On the flagship, Commander could not believe what she was seeing. Her sensors showed the Armada in full retreat. Some ships were jumping to faster than light, desperate to escape. Others simply drifted, their crews too shocked to act. "They won," whispered. Tears were streaming down her face. "The humans actually won." Elder sank into his chair, his old body shaking. "Not just one," he said. "They shattered them. The galaxy will hear about this day. Everything will change." Captain Ho's voice came over the communication channel. "Commander, the enemy is retreating. Your planet is safe." Tried to respond, but her voice failed her. She had prepared herself for death. She had made peace with the end of her species. Now, suddenly, they would survive, because of strangers from a toxic planet on the other side of the galaxy. "Thank you," she finally managed. The words felt too small. "I do not know how to repay you." "We did not come here for payment," Ho replied. "We came because it was the right thing to do." The battle was over, but the work was not finished. The human fleet spent the next several hours securing the system. They collected escape pods from both sides, rescuing who had abandoned damaged ships and capturing survivors for questioning. The bodies of the fallen were gathered with respect, regardless of which side they had fought on. Commander led a team to board the crippled flagship. They found War Chief alive but injured, trapped in his command throne by fallen debris. He glared at the humans with pure hatred as they freed him. "You will regret this," snarled. "My people will return with more ships, more warriors. We will burn your precious Earth to ash." Looked at him with an expression that was almost sad. "You still do not understand, do you? We have been at war with ourselves for thousands of years. We have survived plagues, famines, and weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. Your threats mean nothing to us." She turned to her team. "Take him to the medical bay. Treat his wounds. He will face justice but not cruelty." Was stunned into silence. He had expected torture, execution. Instead, these were offering him medical care. Humans, he realized, were even stranger than the legends claimed. On the news of victory spread like wildfire. People emerged from shelters, looking up at a sky that was no longer filled with enemy ships. They cheered. They cried. They embraced strangers on the streets, overwhelmed by the simple joy of survival. In the capital city, the Planetary Council was already in emergency session. They needed to respond to what had happened. They needed to acknowledge the humans who had saved them. But what could they offer? What payment could match the gift of existence? Commander attended the council meeting via hologram from her damaged flagship. She was exhausted, running on stimulants and willpower, but she would not miss this moment. "We owe the humans everything," she told the council. "They did not come for profit or territory. They came because someone was in need." "But what do they want?" asked Counselor, an older male who oversaw trade relations. "No species acts without motivation. There must be something." "I have spoken with their captain. They want only friendship, the chance to prove that they are not the monsters the galaxy believes them to be." Paused. "They are isolated, alone in their corner of space. They want to belong." The council murmured among themselves. This was not what they expected. Species were supposed to want resources, territory, power. The idea that someone would fight and die just for the chance at friendship was strange. But perhaps, one of the younger counselors suggested, that was exactly what made humans remarkable. Meanwhile, on the horizon, Captain Ho finally allowed himself a moment of rest. He sat alone in his quarters, staring out the window at the below. It was a beautiful planet, covered in purple forests and silver seas. Millions of innocent lives, saved by a fleet that arrived at the last possible moment. They had lost 7 ships. 412 humans would never go home. Ho felt the weight of each death like a stone in his chest. But they had also won something precious, something that could not be measured in ships or weapons. Today, the galaxy had seen what humanity could truly be. The news traveled faster than light itself. Within hours of the battle, every communication network in the galaxy was buzzing with the same incredible story. Humans, the isolated from toxic Earth, had destroyed an invasion fleet. 42 ships against 800. The numbers seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. On a dozen worlds, species who had lived in fear of the began to whisper about hope. On the news arrived during a council session. High Counselor had spent the last 3 days drafting letters of sympathy to preparing for the announcement of their extinction. Now, he stared at the battle reports in disbelief. "Is this accurate?" he asked his aides. "Humans intervened, the humans from Earth." "The reports are confirmed by multiple sources, High Counselor. The human fleet engaged the Armada and achieved total victory. War Chief has been captured alive." Set down the reports. His hands were shaking. He remembered the council vote 60 years ago when the Galactic Assembly had decided to isolate humanity. He had been young then, a junior delegate, but he remembered the fear in the chamber. The humans had just made first contact, and the galaxy was terrified of them. Reports described a species forged by a hostile world. They could survive injuries that would kill any other creature. They could function without sleep for days. Their bones were dense, their muscles powerful, their minds capable of processing violence without breaking. The Earth had created something that should not exist, a predator species that had achieved interstellar travel. The Council had voted to contain them before they became a threat. It seemed logical at the time. Protect the galaxy from these dangerous creatures before they could spread their violence among the stars. Now, wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. In the Republic, Fleet Admiral watched the human battle footage over and over again. She was a warrior herself, trained in naval tactics since childhood. She had studied every military strategy in the galactic archives, but what the humans did was something she had never seen before. "They do not fight like a fleet," she said to her staff. "They fight like a single organism. Every ship knows what the others are doing. There is no hesitation, no confusion. It is as if they share one mind." "Pack bonding," offered her tactical analyst, a young officer named. "Humans form intense social connections. It is part of their survival adaptation. On their planet, lone individuals died. Only those who worked together lived long enough to reproduce." "So their weakness is also their strength," mused. "They cannot stand alone, but together they are nearly unstoppable." "There are weaknesses we could exploit, Admiral. Humans are emotionally vulnerable. They form attachments not just to their own species, but to anything they consider part of their pack. We have reports of humans risking their lives for pets, for alien children, even for enemies who showed them kindness." Shook her head. "And you see this as weakness? Admiral, tell me, would you die to protect a stranger? Would any sacrifice themselves for someone outside their nation?" The analyst was silent. "Exactly. This is not weakness. This is something else entirely." Turned back to the footage. "They have terrorized this galaxy for generations. No one has ever stood against them successfully. Now, a species we locked away and forgot has done what none of us could. We should be grateful. Instead, I suspect the Council will be afraid." She was right. Emergency sessions were called across the galaxy. Species who had ignored humanity for decades now scrambled to understand them. Reports were compiled. Old files were dug up. Experts who had studied humans during the first contact period were brought out of retirement. The picture that emerged was complex and contradictory. Humans were violent, yes. Their history was soaked in blood. They had fought countless wars among themselves, sometimes over territory, sometimes over resources, sometimes over ideas so abstract that other species could not comprehend them. They had invented weapons of mass destruction and had actually used them against their own kind. By any objective measure, they were one of the most dangerous species ever encountered. And yet, they had also created art that moved observers to tears. They had built systems of law and justice designed to protect the weak. They had developed medicine that could cure diseases and heal injuries. They formed deep bonds of love and loyalty. They adopted orphans from other species and raised them as their own children. Humans were chaos and order, violence and compassion, destruction and creation. They were everything at once, and they made no apologies for the contradiction. Commander prepared for a historic moment. The Council had voted unanimously to offer humanity an alliance. It would be the first formal diplomatic relationship between humans and any other galactic species since the isolation began. Captain Ho agreed to meet in person for the signing. His shuttle descended through the purple clouds of the atmosphere, landing in a plaza that had been hastily decorated for the occasion. Thousands have gathered to watch, their large silver eyes following the human vessel with a mixture of curiosity and awe. Waited at the edge of the plaza with the Council members. She had spent hours preparing for this moment, researching human customs and protocols. She knew that humans valued eye contact as a sign of respect, that they communicated much through touch, that they found silence uncomfortable. The shuttle door opened, and Ho stepped out. He was smaller than had expected, averaged nearly 2 meters in height, their bodies slender and graceful. Ho was perhaps 170 centimeters, compact and solid. He moved with an easy confidence, his feet finding sure footing on the unfamiliar ground. Behind him came Commander and several other officers, but attention remained on the captain. Ho walked directly to her. He stopped at a respectful distance and inclined his head slightly. "Commander, it is an honor to meet you in person." Returned the gesture, bowing her upper body in the style. "The honor is ours, Captain. You saved our world. Our people will remember your name forever. We did what anyone should do when others are in danger. There is no special honor in basic decency." Studied the human closely. He meant what he said, she realized. There was no false modesty in his words, no hidden agenda. He genuinely believed that helping strangers was simply what a person should do. No wonder the galaxy fears them, she thought. They make the rest of us look like cowards. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Documents were signed, hands were clasped, and photographs were taken that would be transmitted across the galaxy. Humans and standing together as equals. Afterward, there was a reception in the council hall. Human and mingled awkwardly at first, neither species quite sure how to interact with the other. But slowly, conversations began. A human engineer started discussing ship design with a technician. A human medic compared notes with doctors. Children, both human and, discovered that they shared a love of games and laughter. Elder watched it all from his chair near the window. He had lived long enough to see many historic moments, but this one felt different. This felt like the beginning of something new. Lieutenant approached him, carrying 2 glasses of something that sparkled. "May I join you, Elder?" Gestured to the empty seat beside him. "Please, I have wanted to speak with one of you." Sat down. He was young by human standards, perhaps in his late 20s, with a quick smile and alert eyes. "What would you like to know?" "Everything, but let us start with something simple. Why did you come? Your government did not order this mission. Your captain acted on his own initiative. He could have ignored our signal and no one would have known." Considered the question. That is true. Captain Ho took a risk. If the battle had gone badly, he would have been court-martialed, but he believed it was the right thing to do. The young man paused. Humans have a saying, if you have the power to help and choose not to, you are responsible for what happens next. That is a heavy burden to carry. It is, but it is also what makes us who we are. We are not perfect, Elder. We have done terrible things in our history. Wars, genocides, cruelties that shame us. But we also have the capacity for tremendous good. Every human chooses every day which path to follow. Nodded slowly. "And your captain, what kind of human is he?" Smiled. "Ho is the best of us. He lost his family when he was young, a colony ship accident. He was raised in military schools, trained for war his entire life. But instead of becoming bitter, he decided to protect others. He says that since he could not save his own family, he will save as many other families as he can." "That is noble. That is human," raised his glass. "To new friendships, Elder, and to a galaxy where no one has to face the alone." Raised his own glass. The liquid was strange but pleasant, a gift from the human ship. "To new friendships," he agreed. Across the room, and Ho were having their own conversation. They had stepped onto a balcony that overlooked the city, escaping the noise of the reception for a moment of quiet. "Your people are watching us," Ho observed. "Not just here, across the galaxy. Every species is trying to understand what happened." "They are afraid of you," said honestly. "They have been afraid for 60 years. "I know, and I understand why." Ho leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the purple sunset. "Humans are not easy to understand. We do not even understand ourselves most of the time. We are capable of great cruelty and great kindness, often from the same individuals. We have started wars over nothing and ended them with forgiveness. That is why the Council isolated you." Yes, they saw our capacity for violence and decided we were too dangerous, but they did not see the rest of us. The teachers and healers, the artists and dreamers, the parents who love their children, the friends who sacrifice for each other. He turned to face her. We are not monsters, Commander. We are just people. Complicated, contradictory, sometimes foolish people, like everyone else. Was quiet for a moment. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and orange, colors she had never expected to see again. What happens now? She asked. Now the galaxy has a choice. They can continue to fear us, keep us isolated, pretend that today never happened, or they can do something braver. They can get to know us. Let us prove who we really are. And who are you really, Captain Ho? He smiled. It was a tired smile, the expression of someone who had carried heavy burdens for a long time. We are the species that answers distress calls. We are the ones who run toward danger instead of away. We are stubborn and reckless and emotional. He paused. But we are also loyal. Once you are our friend, we will never abandon you. Never. Believed him. After everything she had witnessed, how could she not? Below them, the city celebrated its survival. Tomorrow there would be problems to solve, wounds to heal, decisions to make. But tonight, and humans danced together under an alien sky. And the galaxy watched, wondering what it all meant. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Prime. The galaxy was a different place now, not because of any single dramatic change, but because of countless small shifts that added up to something transformative. The Empire was in retreat. Word of War Chief's defeat had spread to every corner of known space. For generations, they had ruled through fear, but fear only worked as long as no one stood against them. Humans had proven that they could be beaten. More importantly, they had proven that someone was willing to try. Resistance movements erupted on a dozen conquered worlds. Species that had surrendered years ago suddenly found the courage to fight. And when they sent out distress calls, they no longer shouted into an empty void. The humans answered. Captain Ho stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the stars stream past as the ship traveled through a stable wormhole. The journey that had once been desperate and dangerous was now routine. Humans had shared their wormhole technology with their new allies, creating a network of transit routes that connected previously isolated regions of space. Approaching the system, reported the navigation officer. We should arrive within the hour. Ho nodded. They had been one of the species that refused to help during the siege. Their council had offered prayers and regrets, but no ships. Now, 1 year later, they were the ones facing extinction. A revenge fleet had targeted them, determined to make an example. This time, they had not bothered with prayers. They had called the humans directly. Commander appeared at Ho's side. She looked older than she had a year ago. They all did. The constant warfare, the endless rescues, the lives lost and saved had taken a toll on everyone. The fleet is in position, she said. 12 ships, including the Horizon. They are sending another 8. They should arrive shortly after us. Ho smiled slightly. They had transformed in the year since the battle. Their peaceful nature remained, but they had developed a new resolve. They trained their own warriors, built their own warships, and stood ready to help others as they had been helped. Commander now led their military forces. She and Ho spoke often, coordinating strategies and sharing intelligence. Their friendship had grown into something deeper, a bond between species, a partnership forged in fire and tempered by trust. The Council has been in contact, continued. They want to apologize for their failure to aid they are ashamed of their cowardice. Tell them apologies are unnecessary. We do not help people because they deserve it. We help because they need it. Ho paused. And tell them to save their shame. After today, they will have the chance to help someone else. That is how this works. We pass the courage forward. The system came into view. It was a triple-star system, complex and beautiful, with planets orbiting in intricate patterns that had fascinated astronomers for centuries. At its center, the glowed blue and green, a jewel in the cosmic darkness. Around it, ships gathered like vultures. 37 enemy vessels, Lieutenant reported from the tactical station. Smaller than the fleet at Prime, but heavily armed. They are positioning for orbital bombardment. Time until they begin the attack. Approximately 2 hours. They are still consolidating their formation. Ho studied the display. They had learned from their previous defeat. Their formation was, their ships positioned to provide mutual support. They would not be as easy to scatter this time. But humans had also learned. All ships, this is Captain Ho. The enemy expects us to attack from the front like we did at Prime. We will not give them what they expect. He highlighted several points on the tactical display. Instead, we will enter the system from multiple vectors. Hit them from 6 different directions at once. Give them too many targets to focus on. The human fleet split into groups, each approaching the system from a different angle. They detected them almost immediately and began to adjust their formation, but they were too slow. By the time they had repositioned, the human ships were already among them. The battle was different from Prime. They fought with desperate fury, knowing that another defeat would shatter what remained of their empire's reputation. They concentrated fire on human ships with suicidal determination, willing to sacrifice themselves just to bring down one enemy. 3 human ships fell in the first hour, then 2 more. The losses were heavier than Ho had hoped, but they were suffering worse. For every human ship destroyed, 4 or 5 vessels burned. Then the fleet arrived. Commander's voice came over the communication channel, calm and controlled. "Human fleet, this is Commander. We are here to return the favor you showed us. All ships engage at will." 8 warships joined the battle. They were not as advanced as human vessels, their crews not as experienced in combat, but they fought with passion and determination, proving that they were no longer content to be victims. The fleet broke 30 minutes later. Their commander, a war chief named, ordered a full retreat. His ships scattered, jumping to faster-than-light travel in chaotic patterns. They would not threaten them again. Ho allowed himself a moment of relief before the work began. Rescue operations, damage assessment, coordination with the government. The pattern was familiar by now. Victory was never the end. It was just the beginning of the next phase. On the millions of citizens celebrated their salvation. They had prepared for death. Instead, they were alive. And not because of luck or divine intervention, but because strangers from a toxic planet had chosen to fight for them. In the days that followed, representatives from the council traveled to the horizon. They came with gifts and apologies, with offers of alliance and pledges of friendship. They had thought themselves superior to the too civilized to need saving. Now, they understood their own arrogance. "We have debated among ourselves," the lead counselor told Ho. "We have asked why you help us, why you fight for species that have done nothing for you. The answer, we realize, is something we did not believe in: compassion without condition, kindness without expectation of return. Humans show us what we should have been all along." Ho accepted their words with grace. He did not lecture them or demand promises of future behavior. He simply welcomed them into the growing network of allied species and trusted that they would learn, as others were learning. Across the galaxy, the changes continued. The Council voted to formally end human isolation. Their High Counselor gave a speech that was broadcast to every planet in their territory. 60 years ago, we made a decision based on fear. We saw the potential for violence in humanity and decided to lock them away. We did not consider their potential for good. Today, we correct that mistake. Humans are no longer outcasts. They are our partners. The Republic followed, then the Collective, then dozens of smaller species and factions. Within a year, humanity went from galactic pariahs to the most sought-after allies in known space. Some humans were uncomfortable with the attention. They had been happy in their isolation, building their civilization away from outside interference. Now, they were being asked to join a galactic community that had rejected them for generations. But most humans saw it differently. They saw an opportunity, not for conquest or domination, but for connection. The galaxy was filled with wonders they had only dreamed of, new worlds to explore, new species to meet, new friendships to forge. On Earth, the news spread slowly at first. The planet had been focused on its own affairs for so long that many citizens barely knew what was happening in the wider galaxy. But as stories filtered back of battles won and lives saved, of alliances formed and futures secured, public opinion shifted. Humanity was finally taking its place among the stars. 5 years after the Battle of Prime, a ceremony was held on a neutral space station at the center of what was now called the Alliance. Delegates from 32 species gathered in a great hall decorated with the flags and symbols of each member world. Captain Ho was there, now Admiral Ho, commander of the combined fleet. Commander stood beside him, representing the military. Lieutenant, now captain, led the honor guard. The ceremony was simple. Each delegate stepped forward and spoke a pledge, promising to stand with the Alliance in times of crisis, to answer distress calls, to help strangers because it was the right thing to do. The human ideals that had seemed so strange a few years ago had become the foundation of a new galactic order. When Ho's turn came, he stepped to the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. So many faces, so many species, so many lives saved and lost along the way. "I am not good at speeches," he said. "I am a soldier, not a diplomat, but I will tell you what I know." The hall was silent. Humans did not come to this galaxy to conquer or to rule. We came because someone needed help. When we received the distress call, we did not ask if they could pay us. We did not ask if they deserved saving. We asked if we could reach them in time. He paused. That is the only question that matters. When someone is suffering, when innocent lives are at risk, the only question is whether we can help. Everything else is just noise. He looked at, who smiled back at him with her large silver eyes. Today, we are all part of something larger than ourselves, not because we are forced to be, but because we choose to be. The Alliance is not held together by treaties or politics. It is held together by a simple promise. No one stands alone. When the darkness comes, we face it together. Ho stepped back from the podium. The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing through the great hall and out into the void beyond. Later, after the ceremony, Ho and stood together on an observation deck. The space station rotated slowly, showing them a panorama of stars that stretched to infinity. "Do you think it will last?" asked the Alliance, the peace. Ho considered the question. Nothing lasts forever. There will be conflicts, disagreements, maybe even wars. That is the nature of intelligent life. But the Alliance gives us a framework to work through those problems together. That is more than the galaxy had before. And though they are weakened but not defeated, someday they may return. Then we will be ready, not just humans, all of us, together. Moved closer to him. By now, she understood human customs well enough to know that physical proximity indicated trust and affection. "When I first saw your ships appear, I thought we were trading one death for another. I thought you would destroy thee and then claim our world for yourselves." That would have been the logical assumption. Yes, but you did something illogical. You helped us and asked for nothing in return. You treated our people with kindness and respect. You gave us hope when we had none. She paused. "I have studied humanity for 5 years now. I have read your history, learned your languages, tried to understand your complex nature, and I have reached a conclusion." "What conclusion?" "Humans are not, that word is wrong. It implies something cold, something purely adapted for survival on a hostile planet. But that is not what defines you. What defines you is the choice you make over and over again to protect those who cannot protect themselves. reached out and touched his arm in the human gesture she had learned. "You are not, you are." Ho smiled. "I like that, but it might be hard to convince the galaxy to change our name." "Then we will show them, one rescue at a time, until they understand who you truly are." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there on countless worlds, beings were living their lives. Parents raising children, friends sharing meals, strangers helping strangers. And floating in the darkness, always ready, the stood guard. Some called it duty, some called it honor. Humans simply called it being decent. The galaxy was learning that decency, in the hands of those strong enough to enforce it, could change everything.